Can you be a karaoke king and an indie filmmaker? We're going to talk to someone who is just that today on the Fly Filmmaking.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Hello, everyone. I am Marielou Mandl, your host today for On the Fly Filmmaking. Thank you for joining us. We talk to filmmakers to get all the nuggets and tidbits on what they did to make their movie. And today I've got David Garcia, the filmmaker behind Tejano. This is why we played Cielito Lindo today.
Yes.
Yeah.
We feature this song very prominently in our film.
Right on. And is this one of your karaoke favorites?
You know, I've never dared try this song in karaoke because I don't know the lyrics by heart.
Yeah.
But I need to learn them.
Yeah, you could learn them. You could definitely learn them. What's a karaoke favorite for you?
I like singing like oldies, like Dion and the Belmonts has a lot of really good ones.
I can't think of a song by that
Dream
band.
Lover. They did Teenager in Love.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I get
some
it.
like old crooner type songs. So
just a teenager in love. I know what the song is. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that tidbit with me and sharing your movie with us. We're going to talk about Tejano, which is a movie that is in the festival circuit right now, right?
Yeah, we actually just had our world premiere a few weeks ago in early May in the Dallas International Film Festival.
Congratulations.
And we took home the audience award in the narrative feature competition. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, winning awards, getting out there. Like, and what I say to everyone all the time is like, anyone who completes a movie is a rock star. Because just getting to the end of the movie, like everything else to me, I was like, yeah, sure, great. Like you did this, you did that, awesome. But you completed a movie. You completed your project. Congratulations.
I applaud all filmmakers. I mean, it's an impossible task, and like I can't believe people even make movies.
Yeah.
You know, it's so hard.
Awesome. Okay, well, so let's talk about your career before we get into Tejano specifically. How long have you been a filmmaker? Is this
are we
the first
talking
one?
Professional, or are we talking,
in your heart, in your soul?
In your heart.
Yeah.
You know, I felt when I was 13 years old, I discovered that I wanted to be a filmmaker, even though I didn't even know that was a job.
Yeah.
You know, I just watched TV and movies and thought these things just exist,
Yeah.
And then you start to think about, oh, there's somebody behind that. There's somebody making those choices to bring you that piece of art, that piece of entertainment. And so that was the first time I knew.
Yeah. Well, was there something particular you were watching?
Well, not really. It was more experience. So I would kind of run around with my friends down in South Texas, and we thought we were skateboarders. And I happened to be like probably the worst of the group.
Skate videos. You started in skate videos, as so many people do.
Yeah, someone had like their dad's VHS camera.
Yes.
And I would be like, well, I'm not really good at tricks, so give me the camera and I'll get the shots of you guys doing the tricks. And then eventually that just turned into, all right, guys, enough with the skate tricks. Let's just make a movie right now.
Yeah.
You do that. You say this, you say that, and we'll make a joke. And then it kind of just went from there.
There it is.
Doing little skits and taping it and showing our teachers in class.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, like, so I think about when I first started to become a filmmaker, like anytime there was a project and my teachers were always like, oh yeah, you could write a paper, but you can also do a presentation or you can do like a vision board. They were just like hippies and they're like, do whatever you want. I was like, oh, I'm going to make a movie.
Yeah.
And I would just like get people over and I'm like, okay, I made up this whole story about this thing that has nothing to do with this, but I'm going to connect it somehow, say these words.
That was always the best in high school when you were allowed to make the video projects. So
Yes.
you didn't have to write a boring essay and you could just go out with your friends and make a silly story.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
And then here we are, still doing it. Still doing it. Okay.
I mean, if we had Vine and YouTube back then,
Game over.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you using YouTube and Vine much now?
No.
No? See, that's
like,
the problem.
I'm like too old though.
No, you're not.
I know I'm not too old, but I just didn't like come up with that. And so I kind of hold on to this like traditional model, you know, that I have in my head. So, but I do like long form filmmaking. I don't like really short stuff.
So it doesn't fit there.
Yeah.
Like your work doesn't fit there. It's not that you're too old.
It's
I'm
not
gonna
that I'm
tell
too
everybody
old.
at home, you're not too old to upload to the internet.
That is correct.
I do it all the time.
But if that stuff had been around when I was younger, I definitely would have been doing it.
It would have been a different outlet for you. Yeah, but so you got into long form filmmaking. What brought you from, we got 13-year-old you doing skate videos, now you're making a feature-length indie film. How'd you get from here to here?
It's a really long story.
Yeah, okay. Did you go to film school?
I did go to film school, yes.
All right, where'd you go?
I convinced my parents to let me study something that they had no idea would ever, you know, employ me in any way. So I went to film school at University of Texas in Austin.
Yeah. Is that the one that's orange and white? No.
Yeah, burnt orange, they call it.
Okay. Yeah, there's like a
the longhorn. Yeah, it's a big cow.
Okay, gotcha. So you went there, you went to film school.
Went to film school and kind of studied, you know, filmmaking. Like there's kind of a lot of different tracks you can take at that film school. It's pretty open, but I mainly concentrated in, you know, cinematography and actually shooting on film. They like had a bunch of film classes back then. So we, you know, some of my first times really learning filmmaking was with 16 millimeter cameras,
fun.
Bolex cameras. You'd kind of crank them up and you'd have 30 seconds to roll the camera and get your shot.
Yeah.
You know, and it was really loud and
makes
everything.
you act fast.
And then we got to cut some of our first projects on like an old, you know, Steenbeck, you know, which is just like literally cutting the film and like finding your shot and like hanging it on a, I don't even know what they called it, but you would hang your shots on this thing and like label them.
Yeah.
So it really gave you like an appreciation for the filmmaking process because it was so slow and time consuming and yeah,
I think that's useful. There's always a big debate with our audience here, and like, you know, some people we've talked to have gone to film school. Some people we've talked to have not gone to film school. Both people are successfully creating films, so you don't necessarily need to go one route or the other. But there's benefits. There's pros and cons to both. So like pros for you for going to film school.
The biggest pro for going to film school, I think, is I don't think you have to go to film school. I think everyone has their own path, and I don't think you're ever going to find, you know, the one way to do anything. But one of the pros for going to film school is meeting people that are like you and have similar goals and tastes that are also going to later graduate and be working in the industry. And those people are the ones, those peers are going to help you later on in your career.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be 10, 20 years later, but you might run into them again and be like, hey, I remember doing that project. Let's work together on this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So then what have you been doing professionally prior to making this movie?
I kind of, I graduated film school, and one of the cons of film school, or at least in my experience, was they didn't really tell you what to do after you graduated. So a lot of us, you know, we just kind of were like, okay,
welcome to the trenches, kid.
Yeah, we don't know what to do. So I actually took a salary job at a really small ad agency in a small town in Texas. And I went there and we shot little commercials for like doctors and hospitals, like regional hospitals. You know, we shot it on film, and I was the video guy. So I would have to shoot, you know, load the camera, you know, light it, shoot it.
Yeah.
Then we would develop the film, you know, get it transferred to digibeta, and then I would edit it on the Avid system.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of doing everything at this small company.
Yeah.
And then eventually some friends of mine, it was in 2008, they called me and they were like, hey, we're going to make a feature film. Do you want to come back to Austin and shoot it? And I was like, yeah. So I quit my job.
Bye.
Bye later. And I went right back to Austin, where I went to school, and lived on my friend Richard's couch. And I was the cinematographer for their film.
Right on.
So, yeah.
And then since then, you've been working on projects?
Yeah, it's just it's a long process. You know, you're a production assistant, you're a grip, you're whatever you can get in the early days. And you kind of like try out a lot of different departments, and you see, you know, where do you fit the best, you know, for like just the day job, like making money and continuing on your own creative projects on the side. And I kind of got into editing, I kind of got into web design, and then eventually I found myself shooting more, I mean, mostly, because that was kind of like a lot of my training. So
what kind of stuff have you shot on?
Film on cameras?
Yeah, like digital or film.
Oh yeah, so I stopped shooting film professionally after that job that I had, that ad agency job. So that was the last time I actually shot on 16, which was in 2008.
Yeah.
And since then, the HVX 200 was really big for a while, shooting like P2 cards. And then DSLRs, the DSLR revolution came along, and I stopped shooting on Vericams and things, and we started shooting a lot on, everyone wanted to shoot on 5Ds for a long time. And then Reds and Alexas and all these things.
Good. You partied with all of the toys.
I've shot with all the cameras that come out. And,
yeah, that's great.
You know, producers and people get, you know, one camera flavor that they hear about and they love
yeah,
it.
They're like, that's the one I want. Well, it's like, no, just
at the end of the day, I tell everyone, like, it's not really the camera.
Yeah.
You know, and all the cameras are kind of looking really great, and they're all looking very similar now.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, you kind of choose what, you know, which one you like to work with, and then you'll still make the images the same.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because you get like a knowledgeable operator, and then also, like, you know, cinematographers are artists themselves. So
right,
you're more about your cinematographer than the camera.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's so many other things that go into it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Because that's what makes the difference, is like the artist that we're working with, the team that you're building. Cool. So let's talk about this project, Tejano. Where did that come about for you? Did you write it? Did you did you do everything? Are you the everything of this movie?
I'm not the everything. I mean, there's plenty of people involved in this film, but I always wanted to make a movie, and you know, I was looking for the story that I wanted to tell, and I really love the action thriller genre. So I read an article in a newspaper, I think it was like in 2010, about a guy who was arrested in an airport for smuggling a cast made of cocaine on his leg. But the interesting thing about that article was that his leg was actually broken. And so I wondered, like, did the guy break his leg and then put the cast made of cocaine on it to smuggle it? Like, why would he break his leg, and why would it be broken? So there's something interesting in that story. And so I kind of like, you know, I tried to write it on my own a couple of times, but I was like a working cinematographer and also starting to direct commercials. And I was really busy, and honestly, I'm not a screenwriter. Like, I spent my whole life developing a lot of different skill sets, but I hadn't fully developed that skill set.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know, why don't I work with somebody who's been working on screenwriting for 10 years?
Yes.
And actually, the guy who directed Artois the Goat, which was the movie that I just told you
you had shot.
I shot previously in 2008. Kyle Bogart, he was a screenwriter and a friend of mine. So I said, hey, listen, I got this story. Do you want to write it?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that's a pretty cool idea. You know, and we sat down and we talked about it, and he wrote a screenplay for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's check out the trailer for your movie, and then we'll chat more about it.
Hay muchos niños güeros que cruzan cosas a través de la frontera. Son más jóvenes que tú. Y son más lindos que tú. ¿Qué puede hacer usted para cualquiera, señor?
$10,000. En efectivo.
Ese es el trato.
No.
Vendrán aquí. Si no corres, te pescan y te matan.
Awesome. Very intense drama there. So what did you do with the movie? Did you shoot it also?
Yeah. So
being a cinematographer?
Yeah, I was the producer, got everything together, got my screenplay written. You know,
your story, but Kyle wrote the...
Yeah, and, you know, I did a little writing here and there, but not enough to take credit for the screenwriting. So, you know, and then I directed it, and I was also the cinematographer. I also operated the camera, and I also pulled the focus.
Indie filmmaking.
Exactly. So a lot of things.
Yeah, good. Okay, so you said you had directed commercials before. Had you directed a film before?
I'd never directed a feature film.
Okay.
But I'd worked as a cinematographer on 4 independent feature films before I did mine. Yeah.
So you got to kind of learn by experience, by seeing it, which is something that I suggest to people all the time, which is why I always say, like, just get on a set and do any kind of gig and then kind of move around.
Right.
Because you learn so much just from being there.
Right. Well, as a cinematographer, you're integrally involved in all of these decisions. Like, you really, the only thing you really don't get to do is, like, talk to the actors and, like, direct performance. So, I mean, it's really good training.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how was this experience as a director?
I loved it. I mean, I've always, since I was 13 years old, that's kind of where my ideas were. I always was gravitating towards just like scoping and sculpting the entire piece of thing that you end up with at the end, which is the movie. So I really love all aspects of filmmaking, and I just love being involved in everything.
So how is it then? So you being a cinematographer before, working with a director, this one you're doing both, right? So talk to me about the collaborative process versus being like the everything.
There's positives and negatives to both. For this movie in particular, it was good that I was the cinematographer because we had to shoot really fast, and because there's no communication happening between two individuals. Normally when you have them as separate positions, you're having to talk a lot, and that's slow. But I was just able to make completely streamlined decisions on this movie and shoot really fast and get all the shots and coverage I needed really quickly. The downside to that is that you don't get that other perspective that working with a separate cinematographer would give you. Yeah. And sometimes really good ideas come out of that. However, I had a great crew, production designer, costume designer, the sound mixer, my gaffer. They all had really great ideas. So I was able to still get a lot of good feedback on set.
And are you a native Spanish speaker?
I never grew up speaking Spanish. It was my father's first language, but he didn't teach me. Okay. It wasn't in the style to teach your children Spanish in South Texas at the time that I was born. Yeah, I know a little bit of Spanish.
Okay, so then doing this movie in Spanish, is like largely in Spanish. Yeah. Is it largely in Spanish? Like the trailer is?
It's mostly in Spanish.
Yeah. Was that a challenge? Did you have to go and learn Spanish, or you?
I know enough to understand what everyone is saying, and plus it's in the script. We wrote the script in English.
You decided to have it. Oh, it was in.
Yeah, we wrote the script in English, and then we had the actors translate all of their dialogue themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
And so I kind of worked with them on, how are we translating that, and sometimes it makes more sense to change the English. When you translate it to Spanish, to have a different idiomatic expression or something like that. Because if you translate everything literally, it doesn't always make sense. Yeah. When you're going to a different language. So yeah, I was involved in that.
Yeah. Why'd you make that decision?
To have the actors translate it?
To have it in Spanish at all, if you wrote it already in English.
Oh, because I wanted to make a film authentic to South Texas, which is actually where I'm from. I shot this movie in my hometown. Yeah. So growing up, like, everyone speaks Spanish and English, and sometimes it's, you might ask me a question in Spanish and I'll answer in English. That happens all the time. Okay.
So like that was a choice on authenticity to the area.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And then you said you shot this in your hometown. Let's talk about locations that you pulled. Was it a lot of favors? Because if it's like your hometown,
yes,
where you just are like, hey, Uncle Billy.
That's the only way this movie was able to get made. I mean, if you watch the movie, we have so many huge locations. We're like shooting in these giant grain silos, and we're shooting on the international bridge to Mexico. We're shooting at the border wall. And these are locations that would have been really hard to get if you were like a big movie with lots of money and no local connections. People would be like,
who are you? Get out of here.
Who are you? Yeah, exactly. Scoot. But I would just kind of go up to these, I would drive across these landscapes and just look at things and be like, that looks awesome. And I would just drive up to it and ask people, like farmers and stuff, like, who owns this? How do I film here? And they would have meetings with me, and they would say, like, we don't understand what you're doing or why you want to film here, but sure.
Okay.
That's how we got everything.
Yeah. And that's something that we've talked about with other indie filmmakers, is getting locations in a small town by simply being kind and talking to the people.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can get a lot of that. With one of our previous guests who did the film To Live and Die in La Honda, he just was like this little town that he happened to be staying at because his wife was like in school nearby, and made friends with everybody and got to use all the locations because he made friends with the bartender.
Right. You got to make friends with them. You can't rush in and just expect answers right away. Like sometimes it takes a couple of trips. Sometimes it takes weeks. And I actually kind of pre-produced this movie for a couple of years. Yeah. I would go.
Yeah. How long has this been in the?
Well, we finished the script. Kyle finished the first script in 2013, I believe.
And when did he start working on it?
2013.
Oh, okay. So 2013 is when you're like, I've got this concept.
2010, I got the concept.
Okay.
2013, he wrote the script.
Okay.
And then I did a promo trailer to try and raise money in 2014. And then we shot the movie in 2015, actually.
How long did you shoot?
22 days.
22 days. And then from there, so that's 2014, we're now?
2015 was when we shot.
2015 you shot, and then now just premiering it. So it takes time.
It does,
It takes time to make a movie, especially when you are doing so much of it on your own. You're having to raise money on your own and things like that. So did you do, so you did this trailer, like a proof of concept trailer, which is something that's been recommended by other filmmakers that we've had on. What did you do with that to raise money?
You know, with that proof of concept trailer, I kind of shopped it around to a lot of producers and investors that I knew of. And I wasn't able to find any funding. So I decided to just do an Indiegogo campaign. And I did a video and I posted the promo and asked for money. And I think we raised like $10,000.
Right on. And is that mostly from people you knew?
Yeah.
Who just like wanted to support.
It never got beyond, you know, my bubble.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot actually, but that people are successful in raising a good amount to get some work done.
Right.
Because people want to support you. I think a lot of people don't realize that people want to see you succeed.
Well, it's the easiest way. Like you have all these people that want to help and they would give you money, and it's the easiest way to just say, hey, here's the jar. Everyone just put your money in, just you have to swipe your credit card or whatever.
Here's the jar, here's the thing that I'm working on. It's something specific. And then also we've heard a lot of people mention how it, like, now you are held accountable because you've presented this thing. I'm doing this thing. Please give me some money for this thing. Now you have to go do this thing.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of eats at you when it takes 2 years to do post on your film. And, and the Indiegogo people are just asking, like, where is your movie?
Yeah, what
we funded
money
something.
To this. Where is it?
Luckily, they're all friends, so they were just kind of giving me a hard time.
Yeah. So you edited also?
Well, I had an editor, Shiraz Jaffrey, and he cut it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the movie looked gorgeous. What kind of cameras did you use on this film?
We used the Red Dragon, shot it in 6K and occasionally in 5K just to save on data. And we used Canon lenses, Canon L series lenses, mostly the Canon 16 to 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And then was there a drone shot that I saw in there?
There was a drone in there as well.
Yeah, what were you shooting on? Which drone were you using?
A friend of mine had a drone. It's an octocopter, and it can carry a Red, but for time actually we shot with a GH4.
Okay. Yeah. So it's one that you install a camera on. It's not like one of the DJI ones that has a camera on it already.
Yeah. This was a bigger one.
Good.
Kind of a
because then you can
build.
control the look more.
You can put different lenses, different cameras on it. Again, we put the GH4 because we wanted to keep the Red free to, do shots on the ground on the same day. So
yeah, and so these cameras, then you're shooting now in a small town that's probably does not have a rental house. You're having to rent or acquire gear from Austin, probably.
Well, I actually own all the equipment.
Oh, okay.
So I own.
So you've been investing in this because you were doing it for work.
Yeah, I'm a freelance working director and cinematographer. So I'm lucky to have basically my day job, which is a freelance director DP, pay for all this stuff that I can now use to make movies. Yeah, which is great.
It's good, and it's good that you utilize that because like sometimes you can be in those positions. Yes, I have all this gear now, but I'm not actually going to work on any of my own projects because I'm so deep in the hustle.
That's one of the hardest parts is you have to say, I mean, you could like never stop working, and just never do your own projects. And I've seen that happen, and it's almost happened to me. Yeah. You have to say, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, you have to book yourself.
And the reason why I did the movie at the time I did, because I was talking with Kyle, the screenwriter, and he was like, listen, you just need to set a deadline. You just need to say, you're gonna do the movie on this date. And so in 2015, at the beginning, I said, I'm going to shoot the movie in December. And then every month I would say that again. I'm going to shoot it in December, and I would tell people. And because I told so many people, I felt accountable for that date. Yeah. And as it got closer, we just had to start making it happen.
Yeah. And so it's like you make space for it. And also you're putting that out there to people who typically hire you. Right. But you're like, this time frame, I'm already essentially booked on another gig.
Oh, so and the worst part is that you get offered your best jobs. When you're taking time off to do your own thing, you might get like the best opportunity.
Yeah.
I think I got a call to do a Hot Wheels commercial as a director, which is like a dream job because I grew up playing with those. And
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool brand. Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was making a movie in Mexico.
But you made your movie in Mexico. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, South Texas and Mexico.
Yeah. Okay, so now that you've made this movie, it's making its rounds. You just premiered. Talk to me a little bit about the festival circuit. Like, what do you do after you've made the movie?
I'm learning. Every time I take a step forward, I'm seeing something new. I'm learning something new. So I'm just trying to be really open. I'm trying to talk to as many people that I know who have already done it and are in positions to help me.
Yeah.
So I've been reaching out to basically everyone I've met over the last 10 or 12 years. And a lot of people are helping me out. So
Good.
I've been, getting meetings with distributors and, meetings with managers and meetings with producers and, just talking about what's the next step. So
Yeah, because now that you have this film, you have proof that you can execute this and do it well.
yes,
Like, I can make a story, I can have it look beautiful, I can have a project handed to me and I can finish it. So now you can have these meetings. And I think that's really important to tell people who want to be filmmakers, because they, a lot of people are, well, like, somebody help me be a filmmaker. So, well, you need to go be a filmmaker. Then your career can get some help.
It's really hard for someone to take a chance on nothing. So you have to do something. You have to make at least a short film or a proof of concept, or in my case, I chose just to go for the whole.
Go for it.
I'm just gonna do the whole thing,
Yeah.
make the movie, and see what happens. So yeah, I skipped the short film stuff. I had made a few short films, but nothing of note.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. So, like, you made some, they just didn't get completed, or you just like got bored with them and you're like, forget it, let's go for the big guns?
The short, I made an animated short in 2010 that was a Vimeo staff pick.
Yeah. But directing and shooting your commercials, like, you're still learning your
that's
stuff
where
there.
I was training every day.
All the time. And it was interesting
training.
when David came in, I was like, so, we're going to talk about advice you have for filmmakers. And he's like, well, I was hoping that you could help me. And I was like, that's exactly what we do with this show.
Right.
Is try to demystify. We talk to as many people as possible at every level of filmmaking, so we can all share the information, because everybody does it differently, but there's something to learn.
Well, you have filmmakers who've made like great movies and have had like 20-year-long careers struggling to fund their next movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
And
we can all use help.
Even within that, we had Kevin Tent, who is like the editor for Downsizing, but he like also is directing stuff, and so it was like his directorial debut, but he had been filmmaking as an editor forever. He had a fully fledged career, but now he's like, okay, I'm gonna try this other thing, because we all just want to make cool things and try new stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Good.
Was he able to do that? Or?
Yeah, he directed his movie. It was great.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he got his movie made. It was awesome. So definitely keep doing that. So what kind of
that's the thing. You got to make something.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You got to go do it. What kind of advice do you have for our aspiring filmmakers out there?
Didn't I just say?
Just do it. There's more to that, but like gear-wise,
plagiarizing.
give me some gear-wise stuff. Like if you're just starting, like I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing.
Gear is not important, I would say.
Yeah.
Depending on what kind of filmmaker you want to be, I think the most important thing is study screenwriting, study storytelling.
Yeah.
And I think probably, in my opinion, the most useful skill as a director is actually editing. Because until you've put the pieces together and understand how that works, you're not going to know how to do it on set.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just go on set and just shoot a bunch of coverage blindly. You need to be able to make really, good decisions about what you're getting and where you're putting the camera and for how many takes you're doing it and when the performance is good.
Right.
And
you got to be concise and
you get
efficient.
You get that when you're an editor, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Like I find as an editor, and I'm always editing a lot of stuff that I'm actually in, and I split my brain. Where like if I'm the one on camera, then that's not me. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't make her say this thing again. So you're watching it, and now you get more of a sense of like, oh, if we didn't get it on site, like you have to always get it, and you like listen to your intuition, because I always am like, I knew I should have done it one more time, but I felt weird, or I felt like I shouldn't bother them, or whatever reason. Just get the shot. Just always get the shot.
Exactly.
Because later you'll be kicking yourself when you're
always get at least
that.
one extra take, but don't go too far with that, because that's going to eat into your other extra takes later.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's so many directors and so many ways to become a director, and so many good directors from all walks of production. I mean, they come from acting, they come from writing, from production design, from everything. So, I mean, there's no right way, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I think it's good just to do everything. Try every department at some point in your learning career. You know, volunteer in a different department.
Yeah.
Get their perspective, because that'll help you communicate your vision when you are the director.
Yeah, good. So coming from like living in Texas, where it's not, and it's growing into more of a film community, but like if you're out there and you're a filmmaker, you want to try to find some kind of work, what do you suggest to them? Like you ended up with an ad agency doing something a little like parallel to filmmaking to learn. How do you suggest these folks try to get some experience?
There's so many ways, you know, and I feel like I did one way where I, you know, was working in corporate video and commercials and sports and documentary, and so you get a lot of time making moving images and working with the camera. But there are other ways, you know. You can come to Los Angeles and you can be an assistant for you know, a development executive or someone who's like, you know, choosing the scripts, and then that could actually lead you to directing sooner. You know, because you're in the business and you're meeting people, and then you can kind of do your own projects on the side. So there's a lot of ways. But
somebody who doesn't want to move to LA,
someone who doesn't want to move to Los Angeles, definitely just get a camera. Doesn't matter what camera at this point. Just get a camera, go make something. If you want to do documentary, go film, you know, your dog, you know, getting a bath in the backyard, and edit it together and tell that story. And or just write a short script with your friends and go make it, because you got to make a bunch of stuff, and everyone will say you have to make something bad before you make something good. So it's better to get those bad things out sooner.
Because maybe your bad one's really good, so then your good stuff is really awesome.
Exactly.
But you don't know until you give it a try.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you have other projects that you're working on next?
I do. I mean, Tejano has taken so much of my time that I haven't had a chance to really create any other projects, but I have a lot of little outlines for projects that I'd like to. I think I need to kind of throw a dart at a board and see which one I'm going to run with next.
Yeah. Okay. Is it going to be in the same kind of tone?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with maybe horror genre next. Yeah.
I love horror movies. Yeah. I love them so much. So I think that's a wonderful thing.
More psychological horror and with more of a suspense bent than like slasher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got some questions from the booth. There's a lot of 1-point perspective shots in your film. Was that on purpose? Is that like a look that you go for?
Yeah, I mean, we shot with really wide lenses, and you know, I guess I center framed some of those shots, but I think I tended to try to frame shots a little more 3/4 than 1-point perspective for the most part.
Yeah.
But there are like 4 moments in the movie when our protagonist is facing like a big step in his journey, like when he's crossing the Rio Grande River to swim across, or when he's about to cross the international bridge, or when he's walking into the interrogation room. I did actually center frame him and do like a 1-point perspective shot. So I did use it, I think, for those key moments in his journey.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then did you use a lot of natural lighting?
Yeah.
Because you're just like running and gunning. You're like, we got to get this. Let's go.
A lot of natural light. We had one lighting guy. And when we were planning out the movie, I told him, you know, he's a professional that I work with actually in Austin on commercials. So we have a really good rapport. We work together a lot, and we usually have like, you know, a big grip truck with a whole bunch of toys, right? But I told him, I don't want all that. I just want, let's pick 3 lights, and that's all we get. So we never spend too much time on the lighting, because I'd rather be working with the actors and shooting the scene than waiting for lighting. So that was our strategy, is we would take the natural light, and if we needed to add to it, we only had 3 lights to do that with.
I like that approach of paring down. Like whenever I'm shooting projects, like, you know, you've got so many like lenses you can choose to use and so many different cameras, but I'm typically shooting by myself.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, you get this camera, you get one extra lens that can fit in this pocket of a vest that I have. I'm like, that's all we're working with.
That's perfect.
You can't have lights because you don't have time to set this up. It's just you.
Set yourself some limitations that'll make you more creative and faster.
And it's never come up where, you know, like something might come up where I'm like, oh, it would have been great if I had this, but I can still get something.
Right.
Like I still figure out a way to do it. And I think that's a really clever way, because it's easy for people to stop their project or stall their project because they don't have all of the toys that they want to play with. But you just need the tools you need. And like extra stuff is fun, right? You had like a whole grip truck,
right,
a ton of things to like play with, but you're like, no, let's just play with these things.
What I like to tell people is like, look at how beautiful documentaries can be. They didn't light that.
Yeah.
They just found beautiful light in a space. So that's all you need. I mean, for micro budget filmmaking, you know, the cameras are really sensitive. They're really small. You can kind of get them anywhere, and you can make some great images. So yeah, gear should never be anyone's hang up, you know?
Yeah. But I hear it all the time, and it's just like, you have what you need already. Just go shoot on your phone right now.
Exactly.
And figure it out later.
I think we just try to procrastinate sometimes, and we think, you know, oh, once I have this microphone and once I have this lens, then I can make my movie. And that you can play that game forever.
Because there's always going to be a newer, like, sexier toy to play with. So just go make something.
Some of the best looking stuff I've ever shot, I shot in 2009 on the first Red with like some Nikon still lenses. Yeah. And I still have one of those shots on my reel. You know, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
right on.
I mean, and I had less to work with back then. So I mean, you know, it's not about the gear really.
Yeah, it's not about the gear. It's not about the gear. So how long were your filming days? Because like you've got day shoots and night shoots. Did you like double up sometimes?
So yeah, luckily for my crew, we shot it, you know, in the winter, so the days were shorter.
Oh, okay.
And we had like basically 10 hours of light, maybe a little bit less. So
and good, because Texas is hot.
Yeah, and it was not too hot.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it was hot, but sometimes it was cold. And so I got 2 magic hours every day. We'd get to set right before sunrise. I'd be able to shoot the sunrise and shoot some of the dusky light in the morning. And then we would shoot the bulk of our day, move to interiors when the sun got really bad. But sometimes we didn't have the time to do that. Sometimes we just had to shoot when it was right overhead.
Yeah.
And then we shot right up until sundown every day. And you're right. Sometimes we had to do splits where we went into night a little bit. But usually I would start the day later. Yeah. So 10-hour days, and with travel, maybe 11 hours.
Which is pretty standard. Did you have to bring in crew and cast from outside of the small town?
I chose to bring most of my crew in from Austin because I had a working relationship with them from, you know, commercial and corporate work. And I think it's really good to have that shorthand, people you know. Yeah. That's just the way to go faster. So that's why I chose my Austin crew. Yeah. A lot of the actors were local to the region. And I think that's why the film is so authentic and the dialogue is so authentic. And most of my main actors were actually natives of South Texas as well.
Oh, good.
And they were all bilingual. So
how did you source them?
You know, word of mouth. I didn't use a casting director because I felt like it was too small of a movie. So, I mean, I just, you know, I knew people. Yeah. I asked around.
I just imagine like you're scrolling on Instagram and you're like, are you an actor? I see you.
It was a lot of word of mouth. It was a lot of just calling other directors and being like, hey, you know, I saw this actor in your short, you know, were they cool to work with? You know, how were they? Can I get their number? Yeah. That's how we got a lot of them. So.
Gotcha. That's good. Yeah. So then in Austin, is that where you're living now? Is it the film industry there, like South by Southwest happens there, there's Austin Film Festival, there's like a lot of like indie film stuff happening there. What have you noticed has changed over since like when you finished school to now?
In Austin? I mean, you know, it's, I don't know if when I finished school, if I really knew everything that was going on in Austin. I was so outside of the business at that time. But now we have, you know, we have television shows, like union television shows, like Fear of the Walking Dead shoots there. So you got a lot of professional crew working on these big TV series. Then you have, you know, the occasional movie comes to town. a couple years ago, we had Alita Battle Angel, which was produced by James Cameron and directed by Robert Rodriguez there in Austin. So that keeps people busy too.
Good.
And then there's always like, a handful of indies shooting at any given time. And then there's the commercial and corporate world. So, I mean, Austin's got a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have the kind of like saturated market like Atlanta has, or like LA or Vancouver. People are so busy in those places.
Yeah, I just spoke with somebody in New Orleans who was a camera guy that we hired for a shoot there, and he's like, I am just like so busy, like everybody's working so much. So that's something that I've noticed traveling to these different places, where like I get brought there by productions, but when we hire local, all of these people are like, more people need to move here because there's work.
Yeah,
there's work. Do you find that in Austin?
But you get a lot of people moving there, and then the show ends.
Yes.
And then they
don't have other work. Yeah. Well, and then that's where going to like so like New Orleans, like the guy who was in New Orleans was also going to Atlanta a lot. Like, so finding somewhere like Austin might be a little like solo, but let's get more projects out there.
I would love to.
Yeah. I shot once in Austin and it was so hot.
In the summer?
Yeah, it was during South by. It was like in March, and I was like, it was a few years ago.
Luckily, South by this year was fairly cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But right now I hear it's like 102 over there.
Oh my god. It's so hot. But
Austin's not the best to shoot in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like really great locations though from when I was working there. Just really friendly people.
Right.
Which I thought was awesome, because it's just like a different vibe than shooting in LA.
Yeah, they're not too jaded in Austin yet. But it depends on the neighborhood, because you're starting to get people asking for a lot of money to shoot, in their house.
Because they realize, oh wait, people get paid for this?
Well, sometimes they're also from California, so they know the business.
Yes, they know the business, but then you just go to their neighbor who's excited to participate in a project.
But secret, never let a film crew in your house. No, they're going to destroy it.
They're going to break everything. They're going to break everything as much as they try.
Yeah. And
that's just because, like, it's a clunky thing.
Right.
Like, filmmaking is clunky.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
But that's why there's production insurance. So
Definitely. So most of your people, your crew, you had sourced from experience or people you've worked with before. Right. And were any of them shifting to different roles that they were maybe interested in but weren't in before?
No, I chose everyone.
People were like, this is what you do, you do this. I was
like, yes.
You didn't give anybody a chance.
I didn't give anyone. There was no extra people in our crew. Like every department had one person.
Yeah, they are the department.
Yes, actually, my girlfriend, Anna Davidson, I gave her 2 departments because I was like, you can handle it.
Which 2?
Production design and costume.
Of course she can handle it, because, girls got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this is experience she's had before?
Yeah, she's traditionally a costume designer. So, and she's very experienced in that. And I kind of added production design on there because I wanted to shoot the film kind of with a dogma in the sense that we're not dressing these sets. We're finding really awesome locations, and they are what they are, and all we're doing is kind of rearranging them a little bit. So.
Like super organic. Yeah, like so like with your costumes, like you're dressing them, but you're not dressing a set. You're just like, okay, this is what we have. It's like, again, working within your limitations.
Yeah, this is what we have to work with. And if but there are certain props that were like key to the story that we had to gather and like make sure like you have this one wallet or this one Tupperware container.
Yeah.
But or the cast. I mean, the cast is very important. The cast
made out of real cocaine?
Yeah, it was very expensive. That's where all the budget went.
It's like so expensive.
Exactly.
It can't be. So going back to that story, you had read a news article which inspired this entire project. Did you have to do what kind of research did you do into this? Like, did you go get your arm broken and like have to go through this experience?
Oh no, yes, this is based on an actual events that happened to me.
Obviously.
No, I mean, Kyle and I sat down and we had some Modelo, some beers, some Tecate, some Mexican beers.
Yeah, like very authentic. Right?
And
let's stay local.
And we would just talk. We would talk about ideas, and I would kind of tell him about South Texas and what it's like, and be like, there's curanderos down there, and these are like healers that believe in kind of
what is it called?
A curandero.
Okay, I've never heard that.
Yeah, and they kind of practice traditional, like almost indigenous healing.
It's like kind of witch doctor. Okay.
Yeah. And so people believe very very heavily in this, and sometimes they believe that over modern medicine. And so there are cases of people who don't go to a doctor and they just get the curandero, and sometimes they get better, but sometimes they don't. So, you know, that's one of the characters in the film, you know, and just lots of those kind of things. And so, you know, I talked to Kyle about it, and then he did his own research when he was writing the screenplay. And then a lot of it is, you know, just basic human experience.
Yeah.
So like, what would you do if you were in this situation? And that's how I think a lot of the plot came about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you're like putting yourself in it, not in real life.
Not
Wink.
in real life, using the imagination brain.
Yes, using the imagination brain. What kind of training did you have as far as like creating a story? So, because you've done it in commercials, right? And you like had recommended like people
in commercials for story. The agency gives you the story.
Right. They're just like, here's some
yes,
like words. You tell the story.
Oh yeah. They give you like the boards and everything, so it's already laid out for you.
But for this, like, was there other training that you had done, or any books or anything that you've read?
Yeah, I mean, I've read a lot of screenwriting books, but again, I left that to my screenwriter, Kyle Bogart, who had been doing it and studying it far longer than I had.
And then as far as translating his script into screen, was there a lot of prep that you did, or you just like organically, because you're like, I already know this, I already know how he writes, I know what the vision is.
Right.
Did you have to do a lot of prep?
Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, I did do a lot of work on the screenplay because, you know, sometimes I had to change a scene because I'm like, there's no way we can get this location that's written. So we had to, you know, I know about this location that I can get. So I would just kind of rework the scene to fit into that location. Yeah. And sometimes the location actually dictates what happens in the scene. So sometimes I would have to cut something that happened or add something. Yeah. And that's kind of how I worked with it. And I did a lot of storyboarding. Okay. So I would sit in coffee shops. And
you're doing this after you've already found these locations? Or somewhat not?
No, I knew some of the locations, you know, from growing up down there. Yeah. Some of them I didn't have. So, but some of them I had seen before, in the sense that I knew what that location would look like. Yeah. Like one of the locations is this warehouse in McAllen, like really close to the Mexican border. That is, it's called a ropa usada, which means used clothes. And the warehouse is just full of used clothes in mountains. I'm talking about like 10 to 12 foot high piles of clothes. And there's like a guy that drives around with a forklift and lifts the clothes and turns them so they don't rot on the bottom. And there's people kind of milling about and rummaging through the clothes, and they're buying the clothes by the pound. Okay, so this is a very specific location that I saw when I was in high school, and we would go visit, and we would buy like bags of clothes and like get cool vintage shirts and stuff like that. And this was like the only location that I'd ever seen like that, and we couldn't find another one.
I've never heard of that before.
I know,
but
and
it's like fascinating.
We have a really cool chase scene in that location, and I wrote it for that, you know, and I had to get it, and we were lucky enough that the owners let us use their warehouse. Yeah. Right on. Awesome. Well, key takeaways that I feel like we've gotten from you is get onto a set and try as many positions as possible on the set, so you can see where you fit, see what you like. Don't let gear limitations hold you back. Utilize it to become more creative, and go make your movie. Go make your movie. Go make your movie. Awesome. Let everybody know where they can check out Tejano next. Is it available for people to see yet? I would say follow the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Tejano the movie. And hopefully we'll be announcing some kind of release soon. Awesome. And selling it on digital platforms and whatnot. So these things take some time. It takes some time, but like making a movie takes some time. Like a fine wine. Exactly. Awesome. All right. And where can everybody find you on social media? My Instagram is David Blue Garcia, which is my full name. Right, David Blue Garcia. Yeah. Blue is my middle name. It's not something I just added. Yeah, right on. Yeah. Like blue, like the color. Like the color. David Blue Garcia. Awesome. You guys check him out. You can find me all over the internet at Marielou Mandl, and we will catch you next time on the Fly Filmmaking.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.